All right, so first let me explain the way that the dashboard in Airtable is set up, and then you can kind of understand some of the lingo in Airtable. So first we have workspaces, and you can have multiple workspaces and then bases within that workspace. A base is kind of like a spreadsheet, so like an Excel spreadsheet. Um, and within the workspace, you would have the ability to share that workspace with different members of your team. So if a company, so No Code MBA, if we have a company workspace, we could have multiple bases here. So let's say we have, one base, which is, about form submissions for, a specific initiative that we're working on. Another base might be, all of our course material. So all of the bases would be within the workspace, and then you can have multiple workspaces. You'll understand that a little bit more, I think, as we go, but that's just kind of how Airtable structures the dashboard and the way that you kind of work with the data within Airtable. So let me go ahead and add a base just to give you an idea of what that could be. So in this case, just first, I'm going to start with a template, and Airtable has all sorts of different templates that you can use. So here, let's just say we're planning an event, and I want to use this event planning template. So you can go ahead and just click the template, and then you can kind of read more about the template, and then you can click Use the Template. And here we go. So now you have, let me just start building here. So here we have our event planning template. So I'm going to go in and show you kind of the different parts of the base, which is within the workspace. But first, let me just go back home. So here you can see now we have our No Code MBA workspace, and then we have our event planning base within that workspace. Let me just add another base really quickly from a template. So let's say we want to do a content calendar for marketing. So go ahead and click and use the template. And when you're using Airtable, sometimes you might want to use templates, sometimes you might want to start from scratch. It really just depends on what you want to do. So I'm just gonna finish that tutorial real quick because we do not need that right now. Okay, so let me just go back home. So now you can see there's two bases. So that just kind of gives you an idea of how you might use the workspace and then the bases within that. Okay, so now let me go ahead and go into the base and then kind of show you how an Airtable is set up. So you can kind of imagine this as like an Excel spreadsheet or a Google sheet, which you might be familiar with. And it looks similar in a way. We have all of our, cells, and the data is all here, and then you have tabs here. Now, what this is this is the entire base, and these are different tables within the base. And then within each table, you can have different views. So just by clicking this button here on the top left, we can open up different views. And what a view is it's taking this data that we have in the table. So that the table is the one source of truth for your data, which is really helpful because if you kind of compare that to an Excel spreadsheet or a Google sheet, if you want to view that data with filters and things like that, it can get really complicated really quickly with the copying and pasting. So here you can see, you can just click here. This is Thursday's schedule for this event, and what they did is you can hide fields, so they've hidden the notes, and you can add filters. So here it's where the exact date is this specific date on Thursday. You can see it's sorted in a specific way. And basically here, here's the full schedule with no filtering. And then here on Thursday, we've, filtered and we've hidden a field. Friday, same thing, it's just a different date. So here you can just easily reference, the specific data that you want to reference. One other thing with views is you also can view your data in different formats. So this is just the grid, which is kind of the most similar to a Google spreadsheet. But here, they're showing this in a calendar view. This specific advanced calendar view is only available on the Pro plan from this template, but let's just use only the start field because that'll allow us to see it in the free version. Later on, I'll kind of explain all the differences between the free and the Pro version of Airtable. You can do a lot in the free version. At some point, there's things that make upgrading worth it, but for now, we're just going to be in the free version. So here you can see a calendar view, and this calendar view is taking all of this data that we have in the full schedule, and it's just showing it to us in a different way. So it's all the same data, all one source of truth. If you go to this full schedule and change a name or change a time, that'll all get updated in all of the views. And here, there's other views that you can add as well, which we'll go into later. So just, as a general kind of overview of the way Airtable is set up, we have our workspaces, we have our bases within the workspace. If you click into the base, we have our tables. This is tables of different data. And then within the tables, we have different views. And the views are have filters and different groupings that you can do so that you're all kind of looking at the same data. There's one other thing that I don't think this... Okay, so yes. So here, just to kind of hint at something we'll do later, but just to show you kind of what's possible in Airtable, there's linking between different tables here. So here what we have is we're linking the speaker here. These are all the speakers, and it's being linked to the actual activity. So that's just a way that you can connect data between the tables. All right, so now we are in the Airtable dashboard, and I want to show you some of what's possible in terms of the different data that you can work with. So for this lesson, just go ahead and add a base, and let's click Start from Scratch. And let's just name this, data types. So basically we have this, remember the base here, and then we have our table. This is table 1. You can add more tables, and then we have views, and here we have by default a grid view. And by default, Airtable is going to just create, then 4 columns here: name, notes, attachments, and status. So first, let me just show you these default data types that they have, and then let me show you some of the other data types that you can create in Airtable. So name, you can also double click and just rename this if you want. But if not, you have our name, you can just keep it as name. So I think it's helpful when kind of working with Airtable and practicing to kind of think about a real project that you might want to work on. So that way we can use some real data here. So in our case, what I'm going to do is create a list of no-code tools and then add some information about those tools. So here, let's go ahead and just rename this grid view. Let's just say all no-code tool data. Let's rename this table no-code tools. So this is all data, no-code tools. Let's just double click here and rename this to no-code tool name. And then here you can see single line text works. And then just to explain quickly, this is the table's primary field. So what that means by a primary field is this is going to be a unique field for each row in the table. And as it says here, it can't be hidden or moved. It's just kind of like a short name that you can use that's going to kind of represent the row. All right, so let's just go ahead and add, Webflow, Airtable, Glide, and okay, so we have a few no-code tools here. So the next default that they have, and just by the way, if you wanted to delete it, you could go ahead and delete the default, but or customize the text type to whatever you want. But here, this is a long text field, and why don't we just call this description? And you could just type in, Webflow is a no-code website builder. Then you could say, Airtable is used for no-code automation. Glide is a tool to build mobile apps using a spreadsheet. Okay, so just short description. Obviously, you could put whatever you want there. Attachments. So this is, let's double click on this. This allows you to add, images or any other type of attachment or file. So in this case, I want to rename this to logo. And then let me add logos for each of these tools. So I'm just going to pause the video and download the logos, and then you just drag them in or press plus add attachment and drag them in here. Also, what's pretty cool is you can go here to a web search, and if I go ahead and search Webflow logo, it comes up in the web search, and then I can just go ahead and click and upload that logo. So it's also just a really cool feature of Airtable to search for images right within the browser itself. So here, Airtable logo, and let me just click on this one and upload, and then one more. Search for Glide app logo. Perfect. Okay, awesome. So they're all here. It looks like this is a vector image. Let me just upload, find a different Airtable logo. That is a PNG, which might work better. Okay, let's see if this one works better. Okay, great. So now you can see that showing up. This is another, I guess, quick example where here we have two. So let me just go ahead. You can see I clicked in, I clicked this expand cell button, and now I'm just going to go ahead and remove that attachment that I don't want. So here we have the logo for these tools. And then here we have status. So status, this is a single select field. And this is very useful for different types of use cases that you want to use in Airtable. In this case, why don't I say type and single select, and then let me just remove and then add some options. So I'm going to say website, app, and automation. And go ahead and click save. And then here, we can select our type. So Webflow is to build websites, Airtable is for automations, Glide is for apps. So here you can see kind of as we start to add different data types and build in data. So if we want to add more columns here, we can go ahead and add the field. And here, let me just quickly kind of browse through the different field types. So we have, checkboxes, multiple select. That's kind of like what we just did with single select. But if you wanted to allow multiple selections to be made, so let's say something could do websites and apps, you would want to choose multiple select. There's all sorts of different data types that you can include. Formulas is a really powerful one that we'll go into later. Roll-ups is also very powerful that we'll go into later. So kind of some of these more powerful automations that you can build into Airtable. So we'll go into those later. Here we have some more of the simple ones. So it's just important when you're adding data types, data that you're just using the correct data types is going to be helpful later on. So here, let's just add a URL, and let's call this website. So here we have website, and we can go ahead and enter in the websites for the different rows here. So here, Airtable.com, glideapps.com. Perfect. So now we have the websites. Okay, so hopefully that gave you a good overview of just the different ways that you can add data in, some of the different data types in Airtable, and how you add new columns to the table in Airtable. All right, so in this lesson, you're going to learn how to import data into Airtable. So let's say you have a spreadsheet already, a Google Sheet that you want to import into Airtable. And get started with that data. I'll show you how to do it. So what I use is this website, macaroo.com, to download kind of dummy data to import as a CSV. And I'll attach that file so you can download the same file that I'm using, or you can go to macaroo.com and create your own dummy data. So then let's go to Airtable. And let's just go back to our data types base that we're working on. And if you don't have this, or you're kind of just coming in to this lesson specifically, you can just go ahead and click Add a Base and click Start from Scratch. I can do that as well. I'll just call this Import Data. So you can do it either way. Right, so go ahead and click on this plus button, and you can see you can import data from different file types, so CSV, Excel, Google Sheets, and then there's other file types here that you can import into Airtable. In our case, we're going to do a CSV file, so I'm just going to go ahead and drag in my mock data that I downloaded, and I'm going to upload it. And then here, auto select field types is on. So Airtable is just going to automatically predict the type of data type that it is. So here, ID, that's a number. That looks like that was correct. First name, it predicted long text, so I think we're actually okay with a short single line text here for first and last name. So you can go ahead and also rename these, so this can be last name, so just be a little bit cleaner. So you can see this is just the area where you edit and make sure everything looks good before you actually import the data. City, single select because there's only one city. And then the state, same thing, one state per person. So we have our city and state. So let's go ahead and import. And now we have all the data that was in our CSV is now in Airtable living in the cloud. So, so this is just, it's pretty simple, but a really helpful thing to know how to do and understand how to pull data in from other data sources. So now I'm going to show you how to filter and group and manipulate the data that you have in your Airtable, and we're going to do this through different views. So here you see we have the grid view. I'm just going to double click on that and rename this as all data. But now we're within our table here, and in the table, remember, you can have multiple views, and the view can filter and display the data in different ways. So first, let me show you a grid view. So let's go ahead and duplicate that. So now we have, it's all the same thing, it's all the data. But let's say I want to search for, people that live in Florida. So Florida customers. So then here we can go up to filter. We can add a filter to the view, and we can say where state is Florida. There we go. So now we have all of the customers in Florida, and we can easily flip back from all data to Florida customers. Let's say we want to do something similar, so you can duplicate the view. Now it's Florida customers copy, but let's change this. Let's go to the filter, and why don't we change this to California? So if you start searching for California, there we go, and we have California customers. So that's kind of filters, and you can also add. So let's say we want to do, where state is California, but we also want it to be Washington. So we can do or state is Washington. You could see when it was and, nothing is showing up because customers can only have one state associated with them. So let's say we want California and Washington. And then maybe, we want all of the West Coast. So let's also do where state is Oregon. Looks like none of the customers are in Oregon, so that's not even coming up, so we don't even have to worry about that. So here we're just going to rename this as West Coast customers. So let's just fix that. There we go. So California and Washington. And here you can see all the cities are coming through as well. Okay, so that's kind of a basic understanding of how filtering works. So we have two filters here. Next, let me show you group. So let's say we have California and Washington here, but it's all mixed up. So let's say we want to go ahead and group by the state. And then there we go. Now we have West Coast customers, but it's grouped by state. So we have Washington and California. So very easy to kind of do that on different fields. And you can also group by multiple fields. So let's also group by city. So now you can see within Washington, we can see Seattle, Vancouver, Tacoma, the customers by city. And then same for California. You can see all of the customers by city. So grouping is another really, really useful way to look at data and visualize data within Airtable. One other field here I'm going to show you is sort. So here you can sort by any of the fields as well. So let's say we want to sort by first name from A to Z. Or maybe we'd want to do last name from A to Z. So now within within each section here, it's going to sort it by the last name, and it's highlighting that as well. Let's go back and just remove grouping by city, and now you can see it's a little easier to see that sorting. So within the state, the last name, it's sorting from A to Z. So filtering, grouping, and sorting, all really helpful to understand. I think one of the most important things to understand about it is that it can be applied to different views. So we have, all of our data here, and then here we have a view which is filtered to Florida customers, and then here we have another view for West Coast customers, which is also grouped and sorted. And you can edit these views independently from each other. I think something else to keep in mind within these views is they're all looking at the same data. So just as an example, so we have this customer, Rose, and we go to the state, and let's say we change the state to Florida. So now that customer is removed out of this view, and we go to Florida customers, and Rose is going to be here in the state of Florida. So the city, obviously, we would want to change to a Florida city as well. But that just kind of shows you here, in all data, we can go ahead and search for Rose, and there she is. So the state gets updated in all data, and then it gets updated in the views as well, where we're viewing just a subset of that data. All right, so now I'm going to show you a little bit more about views in Airtable. So so far we did a few different views here and filtered, but they're all grid views. So I want to show you how you can create other types of views here. And it's all going to be pulling from this data like we talked about. So if we go ahead and do a gallery view, so it's going to load, and now it's just going to be a gallery of all of our data here. And then this is where filtering comes in as well. So let's say we want to view a gallery of where the state here is North Carolina. So here we just have a North Carolina gallery. And then here you can customize the cards to show different information here. So we have first name, last name, city, and then we maybe want to add the state as well. And then you can also change the order of the way things are being displayed. So let's say we want to add the city and state here at the top. So you can group and filter in the same exact way. Sorry, not group. You can filter in the same exact way. Grouping is not available in galleries the same way it's available here in grids. So this is just a different way to display the data. You can kind of drag and drop depending on the order that you want, and then you can click into that user and edit information. Let's say there were 30 more data points about the customer. you could, have those hidden, and then when you click in, you could see, you could see everything. So let's say we customize the card and the last name was hidden. If you click in, you can see it's a hidden field, and you can still see that field when you click in. Okay, great. The next one that we can look at is the Kanban view. And this is kind of like Trello, if you've ever used Trello before. Let me first, though, let's go to all of our data. And let's say this is, a CRM, customer relationship management system that we're building. And, we have our leads here. Let's say all of this is leads of potential customers. And we want to go ahead and add a, let's say a status of these customers, where they are in the sales cycle. So we're selling to them, and let's make it a single select field, and let's add an option. So let's say lead. Let's add another option of, interested. Let's say purchased. And then let's say not interested. And we can change these colors a little bit if we want to green, purchased, red, interested, maybe orange, and lead, that's fine. So let's go ahead and save. So now, we can go ahead and I'm just going to show you quickly how to, so if you put lead in and then you go to the bottom right of that cell, we can drag that down, and it'll automatically fill in that data for all the customers you're dragging it down. And I'm only doing this just to kind of create some dummy data for us to work with. So let me just drag down interested, and then let me drag down purchased. Let me do some for not interested. And then let me do lead. Just drag that down for the rest. Okay, so now we have a status for all of our data here. So now if we go to our view creation tool here at the bottom, and we want to create a Kanban view, here it's going to ask us to choose the grouping field. So in our case, we want to do it on status, and we'll go ahead and click done, and perfect. So here you can see we have our lead, interested, purchased, and not interested, and we can also change the order if you want. You can see by changing the order, it's going to change the order of the select fields in the status, in the single select, but that's fine. We'll put it back to this order. This is the order that makes the most sense. Here, just like the gallery view, you can edit the information that's being shown for each person here, and then you can drag them over. So if this person goes from a lead to interested, and then interested to purchased, we can keep dragging them over, and then that field is going to get updated in that data. So if we go to all data, this Joey Wedden would now be in the purchased. Purchased would be the field in that single select data type for that person. You can also create new single select fields. So let's say we want to go ahead and create very interested, and we wanted to have kind of different levels of interest. We could just go ahead and create that. So new stacks. And then there's also this uncategorized field. So let's say it didn't have a status and we just left it blank, it would be here in uncategorized. And the same way that we can filter in other views, we can add a filter here. Let's say same thing, we only want to look where the state is California. So here we can see California sales process. So let's say you have a sales rep that's only working in California. Here you can see all the leads that are in California, everyone who's purchased, and everyone who's not interested. So in the same way that you can filter in the gallery and in the grid view, you can do the same thing in the Kanban view. You can sort in the same way. So hopefully that's helpful to kind of understand how Kanban works and how different views can kind of work together and are connected to each other. One other thing that I wanted to point out is just to remember that all of these views in the data is only connected to this imported table. So let's just say customers or prospects. They're not connected to this table here. Now, later on, I'll show you how to connect data between different tables and even different bases. But for now, you just need to know that, the data in one table, we can create views off that data. And if you want to connect it to other tables of data, then we have to do relations or sync a base. So we can do more of that later on. I just wanted to point that out if you're curious how that worked. All right, so now I'm going to show you one of the most useful views in Airtable, which is the form view. So, we're in this prospects table. We have all of our, data here of the customers. And let's go to down here to create. We're going to go ahead and create a form. And this is going to allow anyone, so it could be internally on your team. It could be an external form that other people fill out and goes into Airtable. But it just allows you to kind of very quickly create a form, kind of like a Google form or a type form if you've used those before. It's more simple. I don't believe you can do, conditional questions, like if they answer a specific question, show them other questions. So it's more simple. You can just decide which fields you want them to fill out, and then it'll get, put into your database. So here, if you're a premium, if you're paying for Airtable, you can add a logo and a cover image and remove Airtable branding. But if you do that here on this account, it's going to prompt you to upgrade. But here you can name the form. So let's say new lead. You can add a description, fill out the new lead for Airtable. And here, let's go ahead, and then you can select which fields you want to display. So you can just do that by clicking that hide button here, and then here you can. These are all the fields. So once you hide it, it goes over here, and you can drag it back in. And then so let's go ahead and hide ID, first name, last name, city. So people would type in their city, state, type in their state, status. So this would be, let's say we're using it internally, and you want the employee at the company to go ahead and say, this is a lead. So you could go ahead and click lead, and then hit, submit. One other thing that you can do that I actually was a little bit wrong about before when I was saying that you can't, conditionally show fields. So you actually can. So if we go ahead here to status, and let's say we want to only show the field when the state is, Utah. So we'll go ahead and add that. So here you can see it's a conditional field. And there's a lot of times when that might be helpful. Let's say you only want to ask a specific question if certain conditions are met. So in this case, we're only going to show the status field. Let's say we're really only interested in the status of leads in Utah. So let's go ahead, new leads, and then submit. You can also edit the label if you are on a paid account. A few other things to note here. You can click show another response button. We're going to do that. Show a new blank form after 5 seconds, and then you can also email yourself if when responses come in. So just a little automation there. So here we have this new lead. Remember, all the responses, because it's in this table, all the data that gets pulled in is going to be added to the bottom of our database here. A new lead, let's go ahead. You can open the form. And here's the form that you can share with people. You also can click share form and copy the link. You can also embed it on your site, and there's instructions of how to do that with an iframe. But if we go to our new lead form, and let's go ahead and fill out first name. So let's say we have our first name, our last name, the city, and then for state, I just want to show you that conditional formatting. So if we select North Carolina, it's just going to ask us to submit. But let's say we choose Utah, now that status is going to show up. And you can see how that would be useful with different use cases of creating forms in Airtable. So I'm going to go ahead and click submit. It's going to say thank you for submitting the form. This is also because we're on the free account. It's prompting you to create an Airtable account. When you have a paid Airtable account, you can turn this off. And then here we can submit another response. Okay, perfect. So now if we go back to Airtable, we go to our prospects, we go to all data, and we go to the bottom, we can see here we have our first name, last name, city, state, and status. So we are all set there.